How you doing? It's the Butcher here. Back again today with another build video for the end of season 1, moving into the Eternal Realm, just like I did with my previous video with the Ice Sorcerer. So today I have a Poison ShredNado Druid build that I'm going to show you. Really fun build, really cool, and the main thing with this, and I'm probably going to keep repeating it, is that it should work well moving into the Eternal Realm going forward. So for most of this season, I was running an Earthen Bulwark build, and it was just absolutely insane. And the main reason for that is, for whatever reason, the Bulwark scales off opponent's level. So when you're doing high tier Nightmare dungeons, you should be doing billions of damage. It was utterly insane. But I'm almost guaranteed that's going to be nerfed. There's like no logical reason behind it. There's nothing that says it should do that. So for whatever reason, it does, and it's a lot of fun to play with. But towards the end of the season, I'm moving away from that. I created this build, and I'm going to show it off to you guys. So first, I want to start with the skill tree, and then I'll move into probably like spirit boons, and then gear, and then go over the Paragon board. And like always, this will be on the D4 website. I'll have everything laid out for you there, every single affix, everything on that website. So starting with our skill tree here, if we go up, our generator is going to be Storm Strike, and we're going to take that into Enhanced, and we're going to take that into Fierce. And Storm Strike is going to be a generator, but we also do want to cast this about every 3 seconds, because we do want that 15% DR for high tier Nightmare dungeons. So getting that out there every 3 seconds is very helpful. And then we're going to come down here, and I should mention we are using Tempest Roar, so these storm skills are going to become werewolf skills, and that will be important as the build goes on. So we do need this unique for this. I know it is a bit of a pain for a lot of people to get, but it is pretty mandatory for this build. And you should have a few weeks towards the end of the season to try to get one if you're running a different build, or if you already have one, you'll be able to use that. But moving down, we are actually taking double core skills, which I think this is the only build I've created that I've used double core, but we are taking 5 points into Tornado, and then we're taking that into Enhance and down to Raging, and then we're taking 5 points into Shred, and we're taking Enhance down into Primal. And then we are also one point into Heart of the Wild just to get up to Wild Impulses, and then we're taking 3 into Predatory Instinct, and 3 into the movement, I can't say that, movement speed while in werewolf form. And coming down here, we're going to be taking Blood Howl, and then we're going to be taking Enhanced and Preserving. Attack speed is going to be very important with this build. And then we're taking 1 point into Ancestral Fortitude, just mainly to get to the 3 for Vigilance for the damage reduction. Nothing in the Companion, and then moving down to the Rat skills, Wraith, whatever it is. We're taking 1 point into Hurricane, into Enhanced, into Savage, and then we're going to be taking 1 point into here, into Elemental Exposure, mainly to get 2 points into here, and you only need 2 points to get an extra second duration for your Hurricane. You'll see it go up. I can actually do it right now. So right now it says 8 seconds, pop 2 in there, 9 seconds. And then down here, these are kind of the big boy damage hitters. We have 1 point into Neurotoxin, that's mainly so we can get 3 into Toxic Claws and 3 into Envenom. And there's 2 ways you can either take on your amulet 3 into Envenom or 3 into Toxic Claws. I've tried both and they're pretty equal. You just gotta change a couple things around. If you're going with Toxic Claws, you just have to make sure you have anything that can up your base damage as much as possible, so staying away from crits and stuff. And then if you have Envenom, you can obviously put more things into crit, because the majority of your damage isn't going to be based off the poison, whereas with Toxic Claws it will. Both work good, both are fun, so you can just play around with either really. And kind of the main things you would change is you put like the purple, whatever they're called, I can't remember, the purple things into your weapons for damage over time, instead of we're using emeralds right now, things like that. But moving down to our ultimate, we're using Grizzly Rage, which is actually going to turn into the werewolf version, and then we're taking the Prime, and we're taking the Supreme, and we're putting 3 points in Defensive Posture to increase the Fortify, and then 1 point into Nature's Resolve, and that's really to get to this Unrestrained here. And we do not have a way to become unstoppable in this build, and it is a problem with a lot of Druid builds, besides Grizzly Rage for the first 6 seconds. Yeah. So one, we have to try to stay out of any kind of crowd control effects when we can, but that's not always possible to do. But this will greatly reduce the duration of it, especially when we have that fortify, which we will have it for more than 50% of our life most of the time. So we'll be getting 27% reduction on that duration, and that is huge. And then finally, our key passive, we're using Bestial Rampage. Attack speed, like I said, is massive, and this is going to give us 25% attack speed basically all the time. So it's for 15 seconds, but it constantly resets when we're in rural form. So that is the skill tree. Moving over to the spirit boons real quick, we are going to be using the reduction from elites. You can also use this here, the control impairing reduction, but I found it doesn't really make too much of a difference. I'd rather just have the damage reduction from elites. I kind of tested that out, but you can make that choice for yourself. Then we're going to be taking 2 under the deer. We're going to be taking the max life, and we're going to be taking more attack speed. You can drop the max life for more crit strike chance, but it's only 5%. I think I'd rather have that 14% max life and then definitely the attack speed as well. For the wolf, we're taking the calamity so we can extend that grizzly rage. And then finally down here, there's really nothing else to take except calm before the storm, because we're going to be we want grizzly rage up as much as we can, and any lucky hits we can get that reduce that cooldown will be huge for that. So now moving over to the gear and the aspects and everything like that. So we're going to be using rubies in our armor here, and like I mentioned, we're using a Tempest Roar. It's a must for this build. So obviously you want the highest rolls and everything, but really just getting anyone just to turn those storm skills into werewolf skills so we can use them in Grizzly Rage will be the most important thing. But beyond that, if you don't have that, I would get like cooldown reduction, total armor, max life, but it's really not gonna work. Just to be honest with you, so this is pretty much a must for this build. And then for our chest armor and for our pants, I like doing these together. We want close and distant on both and total armor on both. And then on one of them, we want just straight damage reduction. On the other one, we want reduction from poisoned enemies. And then you can do that on either. You could even do both just regular damage reduction. You could probably even do both that are just poison. I don't know if I would recommend that. I probably, out of the 2 choices there, would rather both have straight damage reduction. And then we're putting disobedience on one, and we're putting the Vigorous Doom, I guess it's called, on the other, and this gives us up to 15 out of 14.5 DR while in werewolf form, which will be pretty much all the time. Moving down to the gloves, we are using the Storm Chasers aspects, or our tornadoes will seek up to 3 targets, and then we are using crit strike chance, attack speed, and then ranks of tornado and ranks of shred. Obviously, I wish I could get one more rank of shred, but it's not the easiest pair of gloves to get in the world. We are sacrificing lucky hit on here, but I tried taking off specifically shred and adding lucky hit on there, and for tornadoes it only gives us 1% more lucky hit chance and just a bit more for our hurricane and things like that, so I don't think it's worth it. I'd rather have the ranks of shred. Down to our boots here, we want movement speed, we want total armor and werewolf form as high as you can get it, big for survivability for in-game content, and spirit cost reduction. And then I have the all stats on here. You will need all stats somewhere to be able to hit all our Paragon nodes. You can move it to the weapon. You can move it to the amulet. For the amulet, I would probably sacrifice the lucky hit chance. And for the weapon, you'll see I have slowed here, which actually isn't good at all. I'd much rather have crit. But if I did want to put the all stats on the weapon, that's where I would put it. And then I would use either some type of dodge chance or damage reduction while injured instead of the all stats here. But I have that on. I have the all stats on here, and it works pretty well. And then we have the storm shifters aspect on here. So while hurricane is active, which will be most of the time, I think we're gonna have 6 seconds of downtime per cast. You'll gain +2 to our shape shifting skills, and that will end up being I think it's all of our skills actually end up being shape shifting skills. So just a nice boost damage, essentially all around. Down to our weapon, we want to use an axe because we're not using overpower very often, so using a mace doesn't really make much sense. We'd rather just take the damage to healthy. And we absolutely want vulnerable and core and willpower. And then, like I mentioned, you could do all stats on here, but I would much rather prefer getting crit. Unfortunately, I don't have that. You could even do like damage to poison, or if you're using toxic claws, you could do something like damage over time or poison damage or whatever it might be. And then for the aspects, we're using storm claws. So when we do crit with shred, and I believe our crit chance, I can show you in a minute, is like 48% even without that spirit boon. When we do crit with shred, we do some of that 30% of that damage as lightning damage, not just to the target, but the surrounding enemies, which is really nice. And then for our offhand, we are using cooldown reduction, lucky hit chance, crit strike chance, and spirit cost reduction. And lucky hit chance would be the one I would drop if it was up to any of them. The other three are pretty mandatory. I really wish I had higher cooldown reduction, to be honest, to keep that Grizzly Rage up. And speaking of that, we're using the Direwolf aspect on here. So Grizzly Rage now turns us into the Werewolf, and we gain 25% movement speed and 50% severe cost reduction. So you'll see the way the build works, but we can just spam out tornadoes, and they'll deal poison damage, they'll deal a ton of damage in general, and then we kind of mop it all up with shred. Moving on to the jeweler here, we'll go over the hearts first. We have the Barber Heart for this build specifically because we're applying poison damage. I like a higher one. Somewhere probably between 3 to 4 should work. Then we have the Revenge one, which is just the more DR. And then we have, forget what this is called, but it pulls them all in, which is really nice. This will be something that kind of sucks to lose when we move into the Eternal Realm. It does make things a lot faster and easier, but it's not something we can't live without. It works really well like 95% of the time, but there is like that 5% of the time where it gets you in trouble, or just like pulling elites in from all over the place, and you can't wipe them out quick enough, and you're getting attacked by a bunch of elites. But it is very nice to have. And then as far as the affixes and aspects we're using Blurred Beast on the Amulet, and this is going to give us the max amount of damage to poison enemies, and this will actually end up working almost like a Barber Heart, because we're going to be able to explode a lot of that poison damage once we move into the Eternal Realm, because it does it instantly, as you can see there in the description. And on our amulet, we want cooldown reduction, spirit cost reduction, either total armor flat or total armor in werewolf form. I would say the werewolf is probably better, just because you get more of it, but whatever you can get will work. And then we either want Envenom or Toxic Claws, and you could just change a couple things around based on that. And then both our rings here, so we want crit chance, lucky hit chance, and max life on both of them. And then I would probably prefer vulnerable on both, but here we have vulnerable and crit. This actually isn't bad if you're using the Envenom build. I would actually probably prefer this. If you're using the Toxic Claws build, I would go for vulnerable on both. And then we're using the retaliation aspect on one for the increased damage when we have more fortify. And then we are using the ramping Werebeast on the other to extend that duration of Grizzly Rage by 5 seconds. And the other piece of gear I have down here is, so this with the extra damage reduction is centered around, high tier nightmare dungeons, high tier content. If we want to speed farm, getting a Mad Wolf's Glee, and you're mainly just looking for high movement speed, will allow you to just move fast and just clear everything out. And when things are that high level, like you do this with anything in the 70s, you're fine. You just wipe everything out and you end up moving through much faster. So that's the other thing. I just want to show that as well too. Isn't a necessity, but it's a very nice thing to have for speed farming. And then finally, last thing before, at the end, I'm going to show some high tier nightmare dungeon. I haven't recorded it yet, but I'll show off the build and how it works to you guys. Final thing is the Paragon board, and I'll just go over kind of some highlights. You're going to see we're going to be taking a lot of health and damage reduction and armor and things like that, just because it's really built for, end game content, high tier content. So as far as glyphs, we're going to be using Tracker, we're going to be using Exploit, and then we're coming up here, we're grabbing Heightened Malice for the huge damage increase when there are 3 or more poison enemies close by. We could pick up some more armor, max life here. These are all great. We are using Fang Claw here, again, mainly to get more armor and some more damage. Picking up more armor up there. Some attack speed is always nice too. Then I believe we actually move up here and we're able to grab more life and more damage. And we are using Tracker here, which also gives us some DR, which is very nice. And then we move down here and we're grabbing Ancestral Guidance for the nice damage output upgrade. And then we're not going to hit these nodes here. We do need the all stats to hit, as you can see, these two right here. Especially this one, I just want that extra life, pushing the high tier content. We're not going to hit the ones down here, but we're able to have enough spirit. Our spirit is at 161, which I think is nice. I would like to get it to like 170, would even be better. I had it set up before where I hit those, but it didn't make as much sense as hitting some of the other ones because I'm able to grab a lot of these rare nodes to kind of make up for it. And then finally, we're moving over here and we are grabbing Werewolf, not only the DR in Werewolf form, but more damage while in Werewolf form. And then we are grabbing Lust for Carnage to keep our spirit up. And we don't have too much spirit problems with this build. It's really nice because that can be a pain with Druid builds. So that is everything. This will all be on the D4 Builds website, so you can go through the Paragon board node by node. You can change whatever you want. But now I'm going to jump into some Nightmare, probably somewhere tier 97 to 100, somewhere within there. I'm not sure what I have at the moment. But I'll show it off to you guys and show you how everything works, and you can see the build. So I hope you enjoy, and then I'll see you in a second. Okay, guys, and now for the gameplay portion of the video. We have a tier 99 Tomb of the Saints. You can see the affixes on here right there, and we'll show you how we do it. Again, my gameplay is not the best and I'm not used to playing while talking, so please excuse me if I screw up or whatever, but you can see we just want to get that, basically that tornado to get that poison out everywhere, and then we're just going to mop everything up with Shred essentially. Is basically the way this build works, and that's why attack speed is so important, so we can get so many of those out so fast. And then every time we can pop Hurricane, not only does it give us damage reduction, but it does give us several ranks to our shapeshifting skills as well too, which is real nice. And I actually hate this dungeon specifically because of that one attack, and you can see we want to get that Grizzly Rage up as much as possible. That one attack, that lightning thing that basically one-shots anything. And we need to move away from those crowd control effects. Like I said, we don't have a way to become unstoppable besides the initial 6 seconds of Grizzly Rage. So it is pretty important that we do our best. We obviously have that one kind of passive skill there to help us out a little bit. But you can see I'm actually not doing great. Like I said, my gameplay is lackluster. But you can kind of see the gist of it. It's just moving through. We have a ton of health, and we're able to basically just apply a ton of poison really fast, and then we just come in and mop it up. Basically a giant explosion. That's why I think this build will be really good in the Eternal Realm too after the season, is because it's kind of acts like a Barber Heart in a way, where it does like the explosion of the poisoned enemies. And obviously we're doing more damage with the Barber Heart, but I don't think, you know, we got to take what we can get when we move into the Eternal Realm. We won't have the special abilities, and I still like using my characters that I made in there, and I think a lot of people do as well, and playing the game the way, like kind of the vanilla game, and not with all these crazy skills all the time. And like I mentioned, for the majority of this season, I was using Earthen Bulwark, and it was so good. I was using a version with Shred, I was using a version without Shred with that legend, or the unique staff, and it's just amazing. But, I almost died, but it's almost guaranteed to get nerfed in my opinion. I don't know why it works the way it does, but it just does. I was doing billions of damage in high tier Nightmare dungeons, but when I was doing just regular dungeons like speed farming or something, I was not. And you can see we're pretty actually slow with this when we don't have Mad Wolf's Glee on. When we're not in werewolf form, you can pop your Bloodhound to get in werewolf form, but I kind of try to save it a little bit, especially high tier ones. But they won't have that problem for speed farming, so it's not that big of a deal in my opinion, because we just switch over that Mad Wolf's Glee. You could even use that Mad Wolf's Glee for boss fights too, which I can show at the end. Occasionally I do die just because we don't have the DR, but and as I'm saying that, I die. And excuse the terrible gameplay, but hopefully this gives you kind of just a gist of, you know, what this is about. And like I said, I do actually hate this dungeon. There's like so much lightning damage flying all around you at all times. It's actually really annoying. But I'm just really trying to show off the mechanics of the way it works. And we will miss this pulling in, but in some ways it can actually be a detriment, like I said before, because you end up just getting, like when there's all these lightning elites around us, just a ton of lightning damage on us. So it's not the worst thing in the world. It will definitely hurt speed farming, but I don't think it will hurt just kind of pushing high tier dungeons as much. And another thing with that, with the aspect that turns us into a werewolf instead of a werebear, is we do heal for, I think it's 10% of our max life on every kill, and that's why we want a huge max life pool, because we're just going to be healing huge amounts with our blood howl. Our shred actually heals us for about 2%, but that's pretty minimal, and then that one heals us for 10, which is a lot. So especially with the way the barber heart works, a lot of times when we get pretty low health and then they'll all kind of explode and you'll heal for just a ton of your HP, basically going from, you know, like 4,000 back to the 2250 we have. Oh, we have a slay all too. This really is like the worst dungeon. I didn't realize it was just one of the higher ones I had already. But yeah, as you can see, we're just moving through. See, we'll spam our tornadoes, and we'll use our blood howl a lot of the times just to get that 15%, I believe, more attack speed. And we can just apply a ton of poison, and then with our thing, we dash to them. We basically have like a heat seeker on. And then when we don't have, if you were playing like a hardcore or something, when you don't have Grizzly Rage up, I'd probably just kind of wait around. But this, you can kind of push it and just use as many Storm Seals as possible. Use your basic a lot to just try to get those lucky hits that decrease it by 2 and just get it up as much as possible. Make your way through as fast as possible. And this is obviously not a hardcore character. I would have been very upset earlier that I died. I also probably wouldn't have done this dungeon if it was. And you can see we really do mop up after applying that poison. The way we're able to just come in and basically be a heat-seeking missile and just decimate anything for the most part. Oh god, I hate that attack. Okay, I hate the slay alls as well too. I shouldn't be complaining as much about this dungeon as I am, because I'm the one that picked it, but I forgot how terrible this was. Kind of do that, and we'll back up, we heal, we come in, do it again, just a ton of tornadoes, back up, slash in, dash in, and that only applies with the dash, so you will have to like back away or like evade away a lot of times to get that, the one where it explodes the poison damage to proc. So just something to note, especially for boss fights. You'll see, I'll probably try throwing on the Mad Wolves to show you guys in boss fights the more damage it can do. But you will have to kind of back off a little bit and then dash back in, kind of like that. And we'll wrap up that, grab these, and then I think yes, I do still have it on me. Let's hot swap that, and then we'll come down here, and I don't even know what the boss is in here. The Resurrected Malice, but yeah, you can see we'll just do more damage with this, and for most time it's fine with bosses. Like, it's not going to affect you that much. Not having that DR, because the bosses are much easier than elites. I don't know if anyone else has noticed that, but we take care of high tier bosses pretty much with these. And that's going to be, oh, and we actually got a Mad Wolf's Glee, and it looks to be a pretty decent one. So nice end to the video. That's the build. I did die once in that dungeon. It's my fault, though. I'm terrible at the game, and I'm not paying as much attention as I usually do. But I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please consider subscribing. It would mean a lot to kind of get this channel up and started, and I will be posting more builds in the future. For the end of Season 1, there's one more I want to post for the Rogue, and then I would also, you know, once Season 2 comes around, I'm going to be posting a ton of stuff. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll be back at you again with another video probably within the next couple days.